Candace, what did you just do to my daughter? Marcus Whitmore's roar ripped across the backyard like a gunshot. It wasn't the tone of a startled man, it was the voice of a father standing at the edge of breaking. Candace spun around, soaking wet footprints trailing behind her across the pool deck. For a fraction of a second, her face was blank caught. Anna, Marcus's 6-year-old daughter, lay motionless in the shallow end of the pool, one arm wrapped awkwardly in a bright pink cast. Her lips trembled as she struggled to keep her face above water. Her teddy bear, Charlie, floated beside her, soaked and lifeless. She likes the water, Candace stammered, throwing up her hands in mock innocence. She always says it calms her down, Marcus. You know that. Marcus didn't respond with words. He charged toward the edge, jumped in shoes and all, and scooped Anna into his arms, cradling her soaked body against his chest. Her cast dripped heavily. She clung to him, trembling. Jesus, he muttered under his breath. Your cast is soaked through, Anna. Sweetheart, can you breathe? Are you okay? She didn't speak. She never did. Not since Rachel died. Anna had fallen into complete silence 2 years ago, after her mother Marcus's late wife passed away suddenly. Not a word since. Only the occasional hum when hugging Charlie, the tattered bear she carried everywhere. Now, she only looked up at him, eyes wide with pure, paralyzing fear. He stood up with her still in his arms and turned slowly toward Candace, who now looked more offended than concerned. She slipped, she snapped. Why are you yelling at me like I shoved her in? I saw you, Marcus said, voice deathly calm. You shoved her. You pushed my daughter into the pool with a broken arm. She's being dramatic. She's mute, Candace. He stepped forward, dripping wet. Anna shaking in his arms. She can't scream, can't call for help, and you shoved her into a pool because what? She dropped her juice? Didn't say thank you fast enough? Don't talk to me like I'm a monster. Then stop acting like one. If this story moved you, let us know in the comments where you are watching from. Your voice matters. Make sure to like the video and subscribe for more powerful stories that speak to the heart. Without hesitation, Marcus grabbed Candace by the arm and shoved her straight into the pool. The splash echoed like thunder. Candace surfaced with a shriek, mascara running, hair plastered to her face. You're insane. Not insane, Marcus growled. I'm a father. One who finally woke up, Anna's head buried into his neck, soaking his shirt. Her tiny fingers gripped his collar with all the strength she had. He held her tighter and stormed inside the house. His heart pounded. His mind, once fogged by doubt, was now cutting through the lies like a blade, and everything began to line up. The bruises on Anna's shins that Candace claimed were from clumsy playground accidents. The night terrors, the way Anna flinched when footsteps approached from behind. The day she refused to eat because Candace cooked and something smelled like fear. And the camera footage, what about the cameras? Marcus had installed a top-of-the-line security system around the house last year. But when he tried to review the footage, the week Anna chipped her tooth, the files were gone. Corrupted. Always during those specific times. He hadn't said anything, back then. Maybe it was a glitch. Maybe he was paranoid. But after Linda's suspicions and the way Martha, their former housekeeper, had been suddenly fired after questioning a bruise on Anna's wrist, he acted quietly. He had hidden 2 additional cameras, off-grid. Not synced to the main system. Only he knew they existed. He made his way into his private study and placed Anna gently onto the leather armchair beside the fireplace. She curled up, holding Charlie to her chest. Her soaked cast thudded softly against the cushion. He knelt beside her. Sweetheart, Daddy's got you. No one's going to hurt you again. She didn't respond, but her eyes shifted just enough to hold his gaze, and for the first time in months, he saw a flicker of trust. That's when he knew. He logged into the private drive connected to the hidden cameras. Fast forwarding. 2 days ago, Candace yanking Anna's arm hard enough that the little girl stumbled. Last week, Candace slamming a bowl onto the table and shouting into her silent face. You think you're special, just 'cause you're broken? Huh? Last month, Candace holding a glass of wine, kicking Charlie across the floor. I'm sick of that damn bear. It was all there, all the missing pieces. All the things Marcus's gut had tried to scream, but his logic had silenced. He watched the footage with stone-cold horror, his fists clenched so tightly that his knuckles turned white. This wasn't a woman under stress. This was calculated cruelty, and he'd brought it into his daughter's life. His voice cracked as he whispered to Anna, "I should have seen it sooner." A soft breath escaped her lips. She didn't speak, but her fingers reached out and gently touched his hand. He reached for his phone, called Linda. "Come to the house," he said. "Now. Bring Raymond too. I need legal advice, and I need my sister." "What happened?" She pushed Anna into the pool, while her arms in a cast. Silence. Then, "We'll be there in 15. As he hung up, Marcus stood, pacing, his wet clothes still clinging to him. The world outside his mansion felt farther away now. It wasn't about image or money or appearances anymore. It was about Anna, the daughter who had watched her mother die, the daughter who had swallowed her own voice just to survive, the daughter whose bruises were not only on her skin but in her silence. And now, he had proof. Tonight would be the last night Candace ever set foot in this house. He looked over at Anna again, still trembling slightly but watching him now, as if waiting. He walked over, sat beside her, and pulled her into his arms. "We're going to be okay," he murmured. "Daddy sees everything now. I promise I see you." She pressed her head against his chest, and for a brief moment, he felt it, a breath. Steady, safe, and for the first time in years, he believed it, too. The next morning came too quickly, ushered in by a pale Arizona sunrise that turned the desert sky soft gold. But Marcus Whitmore didn't sleep. Not a second. He sat by the edge of Anna's bed all night, his dress shirt still damp from the pool, his mind a churn of guilt, rage, and awakening. Anna had eventually dozed off, her little body curled like a comma beneath the lavender comforter, still clutching Charlie. Her soaked cast had been carefully wrapped in towels, and he'd called the pediatric clinic for an emergency recast appointment later that afternoon. But the real damage, the one inside her, was harder to reach. Marcus stood slowly, adjusting the blanket over her shoulders. For a moment, he just watched her breathe. The doorbell rang. He moved fast, careful not to wake her. As he reached the front door, he glanced at the security monitor. Linda, his older sister, stood waiting, purse slung over one shoulder, lips tight with worry. Beside her stood Raymond Burns, retired attorney, Vietnam veteran, and lifelong family friend. He opened the door. Linda stepped in first and went straight for him, no hesitation. No greeting, just a sharp slap across his shoulder. "That's for letting this go on for months," she snapped. Marcus blinked, caught off guard. "I deserve worse." "You do," she said, then softened. "Now where's my niece?" "She's asleep." Finally. Raymond nodded curtly. "Let's talk." They moved into the study. The air was heavy with the scent of dark roast coffee and guilt. Marcus opened his laptop and turned the screen toward them. "I installed hidden cameras. After the others started glitching. I didn't want to believe it. But I knew." He hit play. Footage rolled snippets of Candace's cruelty, woven together with brutal clarity. Each clip was time-stamped, each one more damning than the last. Linda gasped. Raymond didn't speak. He just clenched his jaw tighter with every minute. When the final clip ended, the one where Candace shoved Anna into the pool, Raymond finally said, "You need to file for emergency custody protection. Today. And I mean now." "I'm her biological father," Marcus said. "There's no custody battle." There could be," Raymond said grimly. "Candace may have no legal claim, but if she spins this to the media and claims emotional abuse or retaliation, you're in for a hellstorm. Public opinion matters when children are involved." Marcus exhaled. "Let her try. I've got enough here to sink her." Linda's eyes glistened. "You know what hurts me most? That little girl hasn't said a word in 2 years, and she still screamed the loudest without ever opening her mouth." That hit hard. Marcus rubbed his temples. "I was building a life, trying to keep it all afloat. Running from grief, I guess." "You didn't protect her," Linda said. "Not until now." "I know." She leaned forward. "So what's the plan?" "I'll call my PR team later today. Keep this quiet for now." I'll make sure Candace is served papers. She's not stepping foot in this house again. As if summoned by her name, Candace's voice rang from upstairs. Marcus? He looked up, eyes narrowing. Don't tell me she's still here, Linda whispered. I let her sleep in the guest room, Marcus muttered. Didn't want to make a scene in front of Anna. Footsteps. Then Candace descended the stairs, dressed immaculately as if the events of last night had been some unfortunate misunderstanding. Hair curled. Makeup perfect. Smile rehearsed. Well, she said breezily, that was quite the overreaction last night, wasn't it? Sit down, Marcus said coldly. Candace's gaze flicked to Linda and Raymond. Her smile faltered. What is this? Intervention? Marcus didn't blink. We have you on video. All of it. You hurt my daughter. You yelled at her, pushed her, called her names. You thought you erased the footage, but I had backups. Candace's face paled, but she recovered quickly. You're spying on me now? That's abuse, Marcus. Raymond chuckled. Lady, I've seen better liars in county jail. You won't get away with this, Candace hissed. I'll go public. Say you're unstable. That you fabricated it all. No jury will believe a mute little girl over me. Marcus's voice dropped an octave. Try it. There was something final in the way he said it. Like a locked vault, a line crossed. Candace hesitated, sensing the ground shifting beneath her heels. You're ending this? Just like that? No, Marcus said. You ended it the moment you put your hands on my child. She stormed out. He didn't follow. Raymond turned to Marcus. We'll draw up the protective order this afternoon. I'll call a judge I trust. Marcus nodded. Thank you. An hour later, Candace's bags were packed. Linda watched silently from the doorway as Marcus walked her out. No words. No apologies. Just a long stare before the front door closed behind her for the last time. Anna had woken by then. Her new cast was dry and wrapped. She sat at the kitchen table quietly, coloring in a sketchbook with one hand. Marcus crouched beside her. She's gone, sweetheart. She won't come back. Anna kept coloring. A few moments passed before she paused and turned the book slightly, revealing a picture she'd drawn. A tall man beside a little girl. And Charlie. The man was holding her hand. Marcus's throat tightened. Is that us? She nodded once. He smiled, blinking fast. That's a masterpiece. She picked up the red crayon and scribbled a heart above them. She didn't need to speak. She'd said everything. Later that afternoon, Marcus sat in the waiting room of the pediatric orthopedic clinic, his legs bouncing anxiously as Anna sat beside him, silent as always, her hand loosely holding his. She didn't look scared, not like the night before. But she didn't look relaxed either. Her little body was too still, her eyes too far away. A nurse peeked out from the swinging doors. Anna Whitmore? Marcus stood. We're here. Anna followed without a word, her cast-covered arm held close to her chest. Inside the exam room, the technician greeted them warmly, but Marcus couldn't help noticing the way the man's eyes lingered on the bruising above the cast. They were faint now, yellowed at the edges, but they were there. I'll let Dr. Garcia take a look before we recast, the tech said gently, and left. Marcus knelt beside Anna's chair. Sweetheart, you don't have to be afraid. The doctor's just going to make sure your arm is healing right, okay? She didn't nod. She didn't blink. But she squeezed Charlie against her stomach and exhaled slowly. He understood. It wasn't about the doctor. It wasn't even about the cast. It was everything. A few minutes later, Dr. Garcia, a tall woman in her 50s with streaks of silver in her dark hair, entered the room. Her demeanor was calm, respectful, but sharp in a quiet way, like a person who'd seen too much and forgotten nothing. She examined Anna's arm, murmuring kind reassurances, asking for small movements, praising her for being brave. Anna stayed quiet, obedient. Then Dr. Garcia turned to Marcus and lowered her voice. This cast wasn't wrapped properly when it was first applied. The padding's uneven. She's got some skin irritation here. And these... She gently pointed to the faint bruises along Anna's forearm. These didn't come from a fall. Marcus felt his throat tighten. I know. Doctor? Garcia nodded as if she'd been expecting that. Do you have any documentation of what happened? I do, he said. Video, timestamps, and a witness. I've filed for emergency protection. The woman's out of the house. Good, she said firmly. Because this little girl, she smiles when you're not looking. And that tells me she still believes you're her safe place. Don't break that. Marcus nodded slowly, absorbing the weight of those words. It took about an hour to remove the soaked cast and replace it. Anna didn't flinch once, though her small fingers curled around Charlie's leg the entire time. She stared straight ahead, her lips pressed together in that way Marcus now recognized as her silent battle stance. As they exited the clinic, the sun was warm again, Arizona's strange mercy after chaos. Marcus opened the door to the Range Rover, helped her in, and buckled her seatbelt carefully. She still didn't say a word, but she didn't resist when he kissed the top of her curls. Back home, the house felt like a different place. Quieter, but not the eerie quiet of fear, something calmer, like the first breath after surfacing from deep water. Linda had stayed behind to tidy up while Marcus and Anna were gone. Now, she stood at the kitchen island, sipping tea from a chipped mug that had once belonged to their mother. "She okay?" she asked. Marcus nodded, hanging Anna's small backpack on the hook by the door. "Physically, yeah. Emotionally, she's a Whitmore," Linda said. "She'll carry the weight until someone shows her she doesn't have to." Anna wandered into the living room and climbed onto the couch with Charlie. The television was off. She didn't ask for cartoons. She just sat and stared at the fireplace, as if trying to remember what it looked like when it was lit. "I've got something to show you," Marcus told Linda, motioning her into his study. He pulled up the footage again, the collection of hidden camera clips, this time focusing on the one from a week ago. In it, Candace screamed at Anna for knocking over a glass. She towered over the child, spit flying from her mouth as she hissed, "I'm not your damn maid. You think I owe you something just because your real mommy died?" Linda flinched. "She said that?" she whispered. "Multiple times," Marcus replied grimly. "I missed all of it. I was out at investor meetings, flying to Boston for board approvals, trying to make us look like a family from the outside while she was breaking my daughter apart from the inside." Linda looked at him. "So what now?" "Raymond's preparing the protection order. I already contacted the therapist Rachel used to trust, Dr. Elkins. He still runs his child trauma program. I've booked an intake session." And work?" Marcus laughed softly, bitterly. "I told my board I'm taking a leave. Indefinitely." Linda's eyebrows lifted. "You? Mr. IPO? Stepping down?" "I didn't step down," he said. "I stepped in. Into fatherhood. For real this time." Linda smiled. "Took you long enough." They returned to the living room. Marcus sat beside Anna, who turned slightly toward him. Just enough. Her head leaned against his shoulder. He pulled out his phone and opened a photo one from years ago, when Rachel was still alive. It was a beach trip. Rachel holding Anna upside down by her ankles, both of them laughing. He showed it to her. "You remember this?" Anna stared at it. Her mouth twitched. The beginnings of something. Then she lifted the corner of Charlie's ear and touched the screen just once, gently on Rachel's face. Marcus swallowed. "You miss her?" A small nod. "I do too," he said. "Every day." "No." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. "You know what this is?" Anna blinked. He opened it. Inside was Rachel's necklace, a silver heart with a tiny ruby in the center. She had worn it every day for 5 years before the end. "I think you should have this," he whispered. "To remember her. And to know. She'd be so proud of you." Anna reached for it slowly, her hand trembling. She closed the box, held it against her chest, and for the first time in 2 years, she smiled. Faint, fragile, but it was real. It was the beginning. Marcus leaned his head back and exhaled. The war wasn't over, but the silence had been broken. The sun dipped low behind the red rock ridges of Scottsdale as Marcus sat on the back patio, the evening air carrying that dry Arizona chill that arrived just after sundown. Anna was asleep upstairs, her new cast propped on pillows, the box holding Rachel's necklace still tucked beneath her pillow. He hadn't wanted to leave her alone, But Linda had insisted he take a moment for himself. "Even soldiers retreat to breathe," she'd said. He wasn't sure he agreed. But he came outside anyway. The patio lights glowed amber. The backyard felt quieter now, but not hollow like before. It was the kind of silence that came after noise, the aftermath. Healing. He leaned back in the chair, sipping slowly from a mug of black coffee gone cold. His phone buzzed. A message from Raymond. "Protective order confirmed. Candace has been served. No legal contact. Full police documentation underway." Marcus exhaled deeply. One more brick in the wall. One more safeguard. But paperwork didn't fix what had been broken. Inside, the living room television flicked on Linda, flipping through local news. Marcus followed the light back into the house. "Did you see this?" she asked, nodding toward the screen. Candace's face filled the television. She was standing outside a downtown office building, crocodile tears streaming, clutching a tissue with dramatic flair. Behind her, a banner read, "Whitmore Enterprises Community Gala, canceled." "I did everything for that child," Candace cried into the microphones. "I stepped into a motherless home, gave her love, tried to help a grieving man only to be thrown into a pool like trash. He's unstable. He's violent. That poor little girl. He's using her as a pawn." Marcus didn't blink. "She's faster than I thought." Linda crossed her arms. "We knew she'd strike back. You're a billionaire. She's after reputation now." The reporters swarmed Candace, who theatrically pulled away, saying she feared for her life. A woman nearby asked if she had filed charges. She nodded solemnly. "My lawyers are reviewing everything. I won't stay silent." Marcus turned the television off. "She's bluffing," he said. "There's nothing she can prove that isn't a lie." "That's not the point," Linda said. "She doesn't need to prove anything. She just needs to plant doubt. Doubt sticks, especially with your name attached." Marcus looked at her. "Then we shine light on the truth." Linda tilted her head. "What are you planning?" "Everything," he said. Candace thought she was careful. But she forgot one thing. You can't erase what's been seen. Especially when you're not the only one watching. He disappeared into his study and returned with a manila folder. Inside was a printed transcript of the hidden camera footage, not just clips, but full-time logs, with accompanying voice recordings from the secondary mic he'd installed behind the fireplace mantel. Every curse, every insult, every threat, it was all there, lined up, annotated, time-stamped. Linda flipped through it, her face hardening. "You're giving this to the press?" "No," he said. "Not yet. I'm giving it to someone bigger." Linda looked up. 3 years ago, Marcus said, pacing slightly. Rachel helped fund a nonprofit called Silent Hope. It's a foundation for mute and nonverbal children. They run a national awareness campaign, partner with PBS, work with the Justice Department to help children testify in court without speaking. He paused. "She believed in it more than any investment I ever made." Linda raised a brow. "And they'll take Anna's story? They'll protect it," he said. "And they'll help tell it the right way, with dignity, with truth." That night, after making arrangements with the foundation's legal team, Marcus sat at Anna's bedside again. She was curled up under the quilt Rachel's mother had made years ago, one corner clutched in her fingers like a tether to something old and sacred. He spoke softly, unsure if she was awake. "Do you remember the beach?" he asked. She stirred slightly. "You found a seashell, remember? It was shaped like a heart. You said it was Mommy's gift from the ocean." Her lashes fluttered. "I still have it. I kept it in my office. Want me to bring it to you?" She shifted, eyes blinking open, barely. Then, for the first time in years, her lips parted, not for sound, not for words, but to mouth something. A shape, a memory. He leaned in. "What is it, sweetheart?" Her mouth moved again. "Shell." It was soundless, but it was clear. He froze. Then, tears slipping down his cheeks, he nodded. "I'll go get it right now." Downstairs, his hands trembled as he opened the small drawer in the back of his desk. The seashell sat exactly where he'd left it, pink, ridged, worn smooth by years and salt and time. He held it like it might break. When he returned, Anna was still awake. He placed it gently in her palm. She closed her fingers around it, and then barely he saw it again. A smile, but this time, he was looking. That night, as Anna drifted back to sleep, Marcus sat in the hallway outside her room. The night had grown quiet again. But this time, it was not the silence of fear. It was the silence of restoration. And somewhere deep inside, he made a promise. Not just to protect her, but to help her find her voice again, even if it meant burning down the world that tried to steal it. The following morning, Marcus woke before sunrise to the sound of light footsteps padding across the hallway outside his bedroom door. He held his breath. They were soft, hesitant, but rhythmic. Anna. He sat up slowly and walked out just in time to see her tiny frame, wrapped in her fuzzy unicorn pajamas, standing by the front window. Her arm, still in a fresh cast, rested gently against the glass. Outside, the desert sky was beginning to lighten, bruised purple giving way to soft pinks and golds. "Morning, sweetheart," he said gently, crouching beside her. She didn't startle. She turned, only slightly, and looked up at him with her usual steady gaze. Then, without prompting, she lifted her hand and tapped the glass once. He followed her finger. In the driveway sat a dusty red truck, Linda's. The back was filled with boxes. Anna tilted her head and looked at him, question forming in her eyes. "She's helping set up the community house this week," he explained. "Remember I told you? The new reading room? She's moving all her old books there." Anna blinked, processing. Then she turned back to the window. "She'll be back this evening," Marcus added, then hesitated. "Do you want to help her today?" The idea of bringing Anna into a public space still filled him with uncertainty. Would it be too soon? Would it overwhelm her? But something in her face, curiosity, maybe made him ask anyway. She didn't nod, but she didn't look away. That was enough. By mid-morning, they arrived at the community center, an adobe-style building tucked between a church and an aging diner where Marcus used to go as a boy. The parking lot was mostly empty, save for Linda's truck and a couple of volunteers hauling boxes. Linda waved them over. "You're early." "She was up before I was," Marcus said, helping Anna out of the car. "I think she wanted to see what you're building." "Perfect," Linda smiled. "I could use a good critic." Inside, the center smelled of old books and lemon cleaner. Warm light poured through tall windows. Linda led them into the reading room, still in progress, with walls half-painted and shelves in mid-assembly. A few folding chairs were set in the corner beside a donated piano and a stack of storybooks in uneven piles. Anna wandered over to one of the low shelves, running her fingers along the spines of worn picture books. She picked up Goodnight Moon, sat cross-legged on the floor, and opened it with reverence. "She used to love that one," Marcus murmured. "She still does," Linda said. "I've seen her read it to Charlie when she thinks no one's watching." Marcus smiled faintly. An hour passed. Volunteers came and went. Linda organized shelves. Marcus helped assemble a bench. Anna stayed by the books, flipping pages silently, occasionally pressing her cast against her cheek when she was tired. Then something happened. A little boy, maybe 5, walked in holding his grandmother's hand. He had a juice box in one hand and a toy dinosaur in the other. He spotted Anna immediately. "Hi," he said. "Anna stiffened." The boy didn't notice. He plopped down beside her, holding up the dinosaur. "This is Rex. He's fast. Want to see?" Anna looked at Marcus. He nodded gently. She looked back at the boy. He roared and zoomed the toy around her book. For a few seconds, nothing. Then Anna reached into her backpack and pulled out Charlie. She held him up. The boy grinned. "That's a bear." She nodded. The boy roared again. "He fights Rex." To Marcus's astonishment, Anna tilted Charlie forward just a little as if he were preparing to pounce. The boy gasped. "Whoa, your bear's brave." And then it happened. A sound. Small, airy, barely audible. A giggle. Marcus froze mid-step. Linda looked up from her stack of books, her mouth parting slowly in shock. Anna giggled again. It was light, like the flutter of a breeze through wind chimes, but it was real. She covered her mouth as if surprised by herself. The boy just laughed and made Rex spin in circles. Marcus crouched nearby, careful not to intrude. Anna turned to him, her eyes wide. He smiled and mouthed, "That was beautiful." She blushed and looked down. He didn't cry. Not in front of her. But something deep in his chest cracked open, the way dry earth does when rain touches it after a long drought. Later that afternoon, as the volunteers packed up, Linda walked over and handed Marcus a folded sheet of paper. It was from one of the center's counselors, a list of therapists who specialized in selective mutism, trauma-related silence, and child behavioral recovery. "She doesn't need to be fixed," Linda said quietly. "But she might need help finding her way back." Marcus nodded. "I want to give her every chance." He paused. She giggled. "I know," Linda whispered, her voice trembling. On the drive home, Anna fell asleep in the back seat, Charlie resting beside her. The sun dipped low behind the mountains, throwing orange light across the dashboard. Marcus glanced at her in the rearview mirror. Her lips were curved in a small, lingering smile. He gripped the wheel tighter, more determined than ever. There would be more headlines, more attacks. Candace wasn't done. The world had a way of trying to crush people who couldn't speak up for themselves. But now, Marcus had a purpose, not just to protect Anna, but to amplify her silence, to make the world hear what she didn't yet have words to say. And today, for the first time, she'd answered with the first sound she'd made in 2 years. The next morning, Marcus woke to his phone vibrating steadily on the nightstand. The sun hadn't yet broken through the curtains, and the house was still wrapped in the soft hush of early dawn. He blinked away sleep and checked the screen. 2 missed calls from Raymond. 1 voicemail. 1 text. "Turn on the news. Channel 7, now." Marcus sat upright, heart already bracing for impact. He slipped on a hoodie and padded barefoot into the kitchen, keeping one ear toward the hallway where Anna still slept. He turned on the television. The headline slapped him in the face. "Candace Jordan files defamation. Suit against Marcus Whitmore claims smear campaign against her is fake." Video played on loop of Candace leaving the Maricopa County Courthouse in designer sunglasses and a pale blue pantsuit, walking like a victim straight out of a courtroom drama. "I loved that child," she said to a throng of microphones. "I was the only mother she had." Marcus Whitmore is manipulating the press, forging footage, and weaponizing a traumatized little girl for personal gain. It's disgusting. And it's dangerous. Marcus stood frozen. The anchorwoman's voice cut back in. "Candace Jordan's legal team is requesting an emergency hearing to prevent the release of what they call illegally obtained surveillance footage from inside the Whitmore residence." He turned off the screen and dialed Raymond. "She's pushing hard," Marcus said the moment the call connected. "She's got a PR firm now," Raymond replied. "Big one. She's framing this like a classic case of powerful man silencing a woman, painting herself as a victim." Marcus clenched his jaw. "She was never a victim." "I believe you," Raymond said. "The court might too, but if her lawyers get ahead of us, they'll spin this as you exploiting a mute child to avoid accountability." Marcus glanced at the hallway again, lowering his voice. "She isn't mute anymore." Raymond paused. "What?" She giggled yesterday. "In public. With another kid." She smiled. She's coming back, Ray." Raymond's voice softened. "That's incredible. But it also makes things riskier." "I know. Every move we make has to be clean, timed. We file a countersuit by Friday. Emotional distress, child endangerment, malicious defamation. I'll draft it. But Marcus, you need to go public before she does again." "You want me to give an interview?" "Not just an interview," Raymond said. "A statement. On your terms. You control the narrative. You release the real footage. You speak directly to people who've followed your work for decades." Marcus didn't answer immediately. His instinct had always been privacy. He'd protected his company, his family, his grief with silence. But now, silence had become the weapon used against them. He looked toward the hallway again. "Anna, I'll do it," he said. 3 hours later, Marcus sat in front of the grand piano in his study. A small camera crew from the Silent Hope Foundation had set up discreetly 2 softbox lights, a single lapel mic clipped to his collar. The crew remained silent. The foundation's media director, a composed woman in her 60s named Terry Wexler, stood off camera with her hands folded. "When you're ready, Mr. Whitmore," she said. He looked at the lens. Then he looked past it, imagining the audience. Shareholders, colleagues, people in Arizona and beyond who saw headlines but never the truth. He began, "My name is Marcus Whitmore. I'm a father, a widower, and I'm here to tell you what really happened inside my home." His voice didn't shake. He described Rachel's death, Anna's silence, the way Candace slowly inserted herself into their lives, her charm, her subtle manipulation, her private cruelty. He explained how Anna's injuries kept piling up, how the main security system mysteriously failed until he installed hidden cameras and learned the truth. "I didn't want to believe it," he said, "because that would mean I'd failed my daughter, and I did." He took a long breath. "But I'm here now, and I'm not backing down. My daughter is the strongest person I know, and she's finally beginning to heal." He ended the recording with a sentence that came to him without planning. "They always go after the quiet ones because they think no one will speak for them. Well, I'm speaking." Terry nodded. "We'll cut this clean, add subtitles, and release it on all platforms within 24 hours. Marcus stood, his hands shaking slightly. "Thank you." That evening, after the crew left and the sun settled low over the horizon, he and Anna sat on the back patio. She wore a soft knit hat. Even though it was warm, something about it made her feel safe. They watched the sky turn orange. He said, "I told the world what happened." Anna looked up at him. "I told them about your strength, about how brave you've been." She didn't respond. But after a moment, she took his hand and rested her head against his shoulder. And then, quietly, she whispered, almost inaudibly, "Did they believe you?" Marcus turned to her, heart thunderstruck. Her voice was soft, barely there but there. "Yes," he whispered, emotion rising in his throat. "They will. Because the truth always finds its way." Anna looked at the sky again. "I think Mommy would be proud." Tears filled his eyes. He didn't try to hide them. He looked at his daughter, at the quiet strength she carried in every breath, every small word, every silent scream she'd endured alone. And in that moment, Marcus knew. Candace had tried to break the wrong little girl, because Anna, though silent, was unbreakable. And now, the world would hear her roar. By morning, the video had reached nearly 3 million views. It began slowly, shared first by the Silent Hope Foundation's network of trauma recovery advocates, then picked up by parenting forums, legal blogs, and finally, the national media. Within 12 hours, Marcus Whitmore's face was on every screen from New York to Los Angeles, not as the untouchable tech mogul, but as a father who had failed, admitted it, and fought like hell to make it right. Candace's narrative started to crack by lunchtime. Marcus sat in the kitchen, his laptop open to a sea of notifications. He didn't care about the press headlines or the corporate emails. What mattered were the comments. "I'm a survivor of childhood abuse. This man just said everything my father never did. My daughter hasn't spoken in over a year. Watching this made me believe she might again. This is how you protect your child, not with lawyers, with truth." Linda entered the kitchen, coffee in hand, her face pale from scrolling through her phone. "You're everywhere, Marcus. CNN, NPR. Even Oprah's team retweeted the clip." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Oprah?" Linda nodded. "The Oprah." He let out a dry chuckle, but the smile faded quickly. "And Candace?" Linda pulled up a tablet. "Well, the footage is out now. And not just your video. Terry's team added one of the hidden cam clips edited for sensitivity, but it's enough. Candace shoving Anna near the stairwell, yelling at her for dropping a glass, blaming her for ruining the mood. People saw it. Good. They also found her old interviews. You know, the influencer stuff she did in LA before she came here. It's not flattering. It's all wine brand deals and manifestation rants." Marcus leaned back in his chair, exhaling slowly. The world was watching. And now it sees. Linda hesitated, then added, "Candace's attorney filed a motion to delay the defamation hearing. No comment from her team since last night. It should have felt like victory. but Marcus couldn't shake the unease simmering beneath the surface. Anna sat in the next room, in the reading nook Linda had built for her, flipping through a pop-up book. The light from the window bathed her face in soft gold. She hadn't said another word since last night, but she smiled. She laughed quietly, and when she looked at him, her eyes no longer carried that haunted stillness. Still, Marcus knew what came next wasn't over, it was just beginning. "I want to talk to Dr. Elkins again," he said. Linda nodded. "You thinking therapy now?" "I'm thinking testimony," he replied. "When the custody hearing happens or worse, if Candace escalates, Anna might have to share her story. I want her to have every support she needs to do that. If she chooses to." Linda's eyes softened. "You're not pushing her too fast?" "I'd never make her speak," Marcus said. "But I'll make sure the door's open when she decides to." That afternoon, Marcus drove Anna to the Silent Hope Center downtown. It was quieter than he expected, no press at the gates, no cameras. Just the quiet hum of a protected place, where children could exist without being watched or judged. Dr. Elkins met them in the foyer, a tall man with silver hair and a deep voice like thunder wrapped in velvet. He knelt to greet Anna eye level. "Hello, Anna. I'm Richard. You can call me Dr. E, if you like." Anna looked at him curiously. Then, slowly, she reached into her backpack and pulled out Charlie. She held him forward, as if to say, "He goes where I go." Dr. Elkins smiled. "Well then, Charlie's invited too." Marcus stayed in the observation room behind the mirrored glass, heart pounding, as Anna walked into the softly lit therapy room, Charlie in tow. The room was full of warm textures, plush rugs, beanbags, a low table with finger paints, sand trays, and tiny animal figurines. Anna moved slowly through the space. Dr. Elkins gave her time. He didn't ask questions. He didn't even speak at first. He simply built a tower out of blocks. After a while, Anna joined him. Block by block, their silence became connection. Marcus watched every second. He didn't expect miracles. He didn't want them. He just wanted Anna to feel safe, seen, and maybe, eventually strong enough to speak her own truth. When the session ended, Dr. Elkins walked Marcus to his office. "She's bright," he said, "incredibly observant, trusts you deeply." Marcus nodded. "She doesn't say much." "She doesn't need to," Elkins replied. "She speaks in patterns, in presence. But when she does speak again fully, it'll be because she's ready to own the story. Not just remember it." "I want to help her get there," Marcus said. "But I'm terrified I'll push too hard." "You're already helping her," Elkins said gently. By letting her take the lead, they returned home as the sky turned dusky. Anna was quiet in the back seat again, but this time she was humming a soft, tuneless little melody that sounded like sunlight might if it had a voice. As Marcus pulled into the driveway, his phone buzzed again. It was Raymond. He answered quickly. "Bad news," Raymond said without preamble. "Candace's lawyers just requested emergency visitation rights. She's claiming you've alienated Anna emotionally. That the viral footage proves she's being manipulated into silence." "Woo." Marcus gripped the steering wheel. "Unbelievable." "They're desperate," Raymond said, "but the court granted a hearing. 3 days from now." Marcus looked in the rearview mirror. Anna had fallen asleep. Charlie hugged tight to her chest. "They won't get near her," he said, voice cold. "I'll prepare the restraining evidence," Raymond replied. "But you need to be ready. They're going to drag your name, and hers, through every piece of mud they can find." Marcus stared at the fading light beyond the windshield. "Let them try," he whispered. "I'm done staying quiet." 3 days. That was all the time Marcus had to prepare for the emergency hearing. 72 hours to protect Anna from being dragged into a courtroom circus, manipulated by a woman who had already stolen too much from her. Every minute felt like a sprint. The morning of the hearing, Marcus woke before dawn. The desert sky was still a dark blue, the horizon tinged with a thin band of light like a promise. He moved quietly through the house, checking on Anna first. She slept peacefully, curled into a crescent beneath her quilt, Charlie tucked under one arm. The box with Rachel's necklace still rested near her pillow. It hadn't left her side. In the kitchen, Linda had already brewed a pot of strong coffee. She looked up as Marcus entered. "You didn't sleep, did you?" she asked. He shook his head and poured a mug. "Too much to prepare. Raymond just texted," she said, sliding her phone across the counter. Candace switched attorneys, hired someone new, a shark. Marcus picked up the phone. The name made his stomach knot. Daniel Faulkner. A media-savvy trial lawyer known for turning courtroom strategy into spectacle. He didn't just fight cases, he performed them. "She's planning to turn this into a public trial," Marcus muttered. "Not just about custody. She wants the spotlight back." Linda nodded. "She can't stand being seen as the villain." "She is the villain," Marcus said flatly. "And today, the court needs to see that too." They arrived at the courthouse 2 hours early. Raymond met them at the entrance, dressed immaculately in a navy suit, his briefcase in one hand, documents in the other. "She's already here," he said. Waiting inside with Faulkner, Marcus glanced back at the SUV where Anna sat in the back seat, coloring quietly. Linda had stayed with her, keeping her calm, keeping the world out. "She's not going in there," Marcus said. "Not unless the judge absolutely demands it." Raymond nodded. "We'll fight that." They entered the courtroom at 8:07 a.m., sharp. The space was sterile, modern, with high ceilings and cold gray walls. At the far end, Candace sat poised beside her new lawyer, dressed in soft lavender, a color that screamed harmless and gentle. But Marcus had seen the venom behind her eyes. She didn't look at him, but she smirked at the cameras stationed just outside the courtroom doors. She knew this would get out. The judge, a woman in her 50s with steel gray hair and sharp eyes, entered. "This is a hearing to determine whether emergency visitation rights shall be granted to Miss Candace Jordan. Let's proceed." Faulkner was the first to speak. He was smooth, charismatic, and terrifyingly good at weaving fiction into fact. "Your Honor," he began, "my client has been subjected to an unrelenting campaign of defamation. Not only has she been publicly humiliated, but she's also been cut off from a child she's raised as her own, a child she loves. We're requesting temporary supervised visitation to maintain the emotional bond that's already been severely damaged." Raymond stood. "Your Honor, we reject this entirely. Miss Jordan is under investigation for child endangerment. There is surveillance footage admitted to this court that clearly shows her physically and emotionally abusing the child in question. She was removed from the home for that reason." Faulkner raised a hand. "The footage, Your Honor, was illegally obtained without proper disclosure or consent. It's inadmissible and subject to privacy violations. We're not seeking a criminal conviction here." Raymond shot back. "This is a custody hearing. The child's safety is paramount. Admissibility rules are different, and besides, the court has already viewed the footage and deemed it relevant." The judge held up a hand. "Enough. I've reviewed the evidence. I've seen the recordings. And I've read both sides of the affidavits." She looked at Faulkner. "This footage was gathered in the child's home, by her legal guardian. Your privacy argument doesn't hold." Candace shifted in her seat, her calm demeanor cracking. Raymond stepped forward. "Your Honor, we've also submitted a sealed statement from Dr. Richard Elkins, child trauma specialist at the Silent Hope Center. His report confirms that the child Anna Whitmore exhibited symptoms consistent with chronic emotional trauma during the time she lived with Miss Jordan. Since Miss Jordan's removal, the child has begun to recover." The judge nodded slowly. "I've read Dr. Elkins' report. It is compelling." Then her gaze shifted to Marcus. "Mr. Whitmore, I'd like to hear from you directly. Why do you believe your daughter should not see Miss Jordan even under supervision?" Marcus stood. He hadn't written a speech. He didn't need one. "She's afraid of her," he said simply. "Anna may not say it out loud. She's only just beginning to find her voice again. But I see it in her eyes. I see it when someone knocks too loud, or drops a plate, or raises their voice. I failed her once. I let that woman into our home. I ignored the signs. I will never do that again." He paused. "My daughter deserves to heal in peace. She deserves to know she's safe, and Candace Jordan took that from her. The room was silent for a long moment. The judge finally leaned forward. This court finds that granting emergency visitation is not in the best interest of the child. The motion is denied. Miss Jordan is ordered to maintain a distance of no less than 500 feet from the child until further notice. Candace stood abruptly, her face pale with rage. This is a farce. You're letting him turn the world against me. Faulkner tried to calm her, but she shook him off and stormed out of the courtroom, cameras flashing as she passed through the corridor. Marcus exhaled, his hands trembling slightly as he returned to the bench. Raymond leaned in. That was the first battle. We won. Back outside, Marcus opened the car door. Anna looked up at him. Is she gone? He nodded. She's not going to hurt you again. Anna didn't smile. But she nodded once, firmly. Then reached for his hand. And as the SUV pulled away from the courthouse, the world behind them still buzzing with headlines and whispers, Marcus realized something. Candace had raised her voice in court, but Anna's silence had spoken louder. The day after the hearing, the Whitmore house was quieter than it had been in weeks. Not the fragile quiet of anxiety or grief, but a kind of peace that felt hard-earned. The storm had passed, at least for now. And in its wake, Anna smiled more often. She didn't speak again that day, but she did hum a soft tune while drawing sunflowers with bright yellow crayons. And for Marcus, that was enough. He sat across from her at the kitchen island, scrolling through his emails. Messages poured in from people all over the country. Survivors, parents, even former employees he hadn't spoken to in years. One message stood out. Subject: she tried this before. From Anonymous. Message: Marcus, I saw the footage. I worked with Candace years ago, different state, different name. She had a relationship with a man who had a son. Same story. Things got bad, then the man suddenly lost custody. And no one could prove why. Be careful. She knows how to hide the damage. Marcus' blood chilled. He reread it 3 times, then forwarded it to Raymond with a note. Verify. Discreetly. Linda entered from the garden with a basket of fresh herbs, her sleeves rolled up. She's asking to plant a flower bed, she said, nodding toward Anna. Wants sunflowers and lavender. Thought it might be nice to have something that grows under her name. Marcus looked over at Anna, who had begun sketching rows of stems in the margin of her notebook. She never liked flowers before, he said. She's growing, Linda replied. You both are. Later that evening, Marcus took Anna to the backyard. The sun was beginning to set, casting long golden shadows across the gravel paths. Anna carried a small trowel and a packet of sunflower seeds. She knelt in the soft dirt near the back wall while Marcus dug small holes for planting. She pressed the seeds in gently, like she was laying down hope. As they worked, Marcus spoke softly, mostly to fill the space. Your mom loved sunflowers. She used to say they were the only flowers that smiled back at you. Anna paused, her hands dirt-stained, then turned her face toward him. Her expression held something thoughtful, almost longing. You know, he continued. When she was pregnant with you, she used to sit right here in this spot and talk to you, every afternoon, told you stories, sang silly songs. Anna blinked slowly. A quiet breeze stirred the dirt around her ankles. Then, carefully, she lifted her casted arm and pressed it against his hand. A silent thank you, a connection. That night, as Marcus tucked her into bed, she reached beneath her pillow and pulled out the box with Rachel's necklace. She opened it, took the chain in her small fingers, and held it out to him. You want me to? He asked. She nodded. He placed the necklace gently around her neck. The tiny gold pendant, a sunburst, rested just above her collarbone. Mom would be proud of you, he said softly. She reached for Charlie and pulled him close. Her eyes remained open for a long time as he turned off the light and stepped into the hallway. Marcus didn't go far. He sat in the dark just outside her room, elbows on his knees, fingers steepled. His mind still churned with the anonymous email. What if Candace had done this before? What if she'd slipped through the cracks more than once, leaving a trail of broken children behind her? His phone buzzed again. A message from Raymond, working on the lead. Found a match 2017, Colorado Springs. Man named Darren Holt. Will call you in the morning. Marcus stood abruptly. He couldn't wait until morning. He walked out to the patio, dialed the number Raymond had attached to the case file. It rang 4 times before a gruff male voice answered. Yeah? Mr. Holt? Who is this? My name is Marcus Whitmore. You don't know me. But I believe you once knew a woman named Candace Jordan. Though she may have gone by another name then. There was a long silence. Then, you have a kid? Marcus's stomach turned. Yes, a daughter. Another pause. She hurt mine, broke his arm. Said he fell. Police didn't believe us. Her lawyer made us look crazy. I lost custody during the fight. I haven't seen my son in 5 years. Marcus felt a surge of nausea. I'm sorry. She's dangerous, man. And she doesn't stop until you're flat on your back, and she's walking away clean. Would you be willing to speak on record? Submit a statement? There was hesitation. If it helps you keep your girl safe. Yeah, I'll talk. Just tell me when. Marcus ended the call with shaking hands. He sat outside until well past midnight, staring up at the stars. For every answer, 10 more questions rose. But one thing was clear. Candace had done this before, and she would do it again, unless someone stopped her. The next morning, Marcus gathered every piece of evidence they had. Raymond would present Holt's statement alongside the hidden footage, Elkin's report, and the family history that now stretched across 2 states. They would file a permanent protection order, with criminal charges attached. But it wasn't just about Candace anymore. It was about the system that let her walk away. He stood in Anna's doorway just before breakfast. She was braiding ribbons into Charlie's arm, a new ritual she'd started recently. When she saw him, she patted the bed beside her. Saturday, I need to ask you something, he said gently. It's important. She tilted her head. There may come a day when you'll be asked to tell your story. You don't have to say anything. You don't owe anyone that. But if you want to, I'll be right there. Anna looked down at the bear. Then she did something he hadn't expected. She pulled a small notebook from beneath her pillow and handed it to him. Inside were sketches. Simple ones. Her, Candace. Him, a broken glass, a staircase, a bruise, a tear, a sunflower, and at the bottom of the last page, she had written a single word. Enough. Marcus closed the notebook, eyes burning. Yes, sweetheart, he said. It Island. May. And he held her, knowing this was just the beginning of everything they still needed to say. The courthouse was quieter this time. There were no swarms of reporters, no flashing cameras, no microphones being shoved into faces, just a handful of courtroom staff, a judge with tired eyes, and a quiet tension that hung in the air like fog. But for Marcus, this hearing was heavier than all the others combined. This was the day he had both feared and prepared for. Anna had chosen to speak. He had left that decision entirely in her hands. There was no pressure, no expectation. But the moment she handed him that notebook, with the word enough written in her careful, unsteady hand, he knew she was ready. And now, as they sat side by side outside the courtroom, her small hand wrapped tightly around his index finger, he could feel the weight of her courage like a pulse beneath her skin. Linda knelt before Anna, adjusting the little cardigan draped over her shoulders. You're brave, she whispered. Not because of what you're going to say, but because you're willing to say it. Anna looked up at her, eyes wide and calm. Then she nodded once. Raymond emerged from the courtroom and gave Marcus a subtle nod. They're ready. Judge agreed to a closed session. No press. Just the lawyers, the child advocate, and the court recorder. Thank God, Marcus said, exhaling. She wants to bring Charlie, Raymond added. Of course, Marcus replied. Anna clutched her stuffed bear to her chest as they entered the courtroom. The space felt colder than the last time. Maybe because Marcus knew that this was no longer about defense. This was Anna stepping into the spotlight, if only for a moment, to tell a truth she had carried in silence for far too long. The judge greeted Anna gently. Good morning, sweetheart. You can sit wherever you like. And you don't have to say anything you don't want to. This is your space. Anna sat in the oversized chair beside the child advocate. Charlie perched on her lap like a silent bodyguard. She didn't speak at first. Her fingers fidgeted with the bear's ribbon. Then the judge said something unexpected. "Before we begin, I want you to know something. I read the letters you wrote. I saw your drawings. They spoke volumes." Anna looked up, eyes soft with surprise. "You've already told your story," the judge said. "Anything else you say now is just adding light." Anna blinked, then reached into the small pouch she wore across her chest. She pulled out the same notebook from earlier, the one filled with sketches. She opened it to the page with the sunflower. She held it up. "This is me," she said quietly. The room fell completely still. The judge leaned forward gently. "Can you tell us why?" Anna swallowed, then spoke again just loud enough to be heard. "Because sunflowers grow toward the light, even when the sky is heavy." Marcus felt the tears sting his eyes. He kept his posture straight, steady, but inside he was crumbling with awe. "Did someone hurt you, Anna?" the judge asked softly. Anna nodded. She said, "Mommy was gone, so I had to listen to her, even when it hurt." "Who said that to you?" "Candace." The room seemed to constrict around them. Anna didn't cry. She didn't tremble. She clutched Charlie, took a breath, and continued. "She pushed me. She pulled me. She told me I was hard to love. But I tried. I tried really hard to be good. You didn't do anything wrong, Anna," the judge said gently. "What she did to you was wrong. You didn't deserve that." Anna looked down, lips pressed together. Then she added, "Daddy saved me. But I didn't know if I was allowed to be happy again." Marcus lowered his head, letting the tears fall in silence. The judge turned to the court recorder. "Enter all verbal testimony into permanent record." Then she looked back at Anna. "You are very brave. Thank you for helping us understand." Anna looked at Marcus, and for the first time, she smiled in the courtroom. A small, steady smile that said, "I said it. I made it real." The judge addressed both legal teams. Based on the cumulative evidence, including the sealed affidavit from Dr. Elkins, video surveillance, and the child's own testimony, this court is issuing a permanent no-contact order between Candace Jordan and the minor, Anna Whitmore. There were no objections. Faulkner, Candace's lawyer, sat silent, his argument dead before it began. Furthermore, the judge continued, "I am referring Miss Jordan's conduct to the county prosecutor's office for review of potential criminal charges. This court will not tolerate any manipulation of a child's trust under the guise of guardianship." The gavel came down. The hearing was over. Marcus didn't wait for formalities. He crossed the room, knelt beside Anna, and held her tightly. She buried her face into his neck and whispered, "Is it really done?" "It's done," he whispered back. "You did it." Outside, the sky was wide and blue, dotted with lazy white clouds. Anna twirled in the sunlight with Charlie in her arms, the necklace around her neck catching the light. Linda opened the passenger door and called, "Snack stop before home?" Anna turned to Marcus. "Can I get waffles?" He grinned. "Waffles at Island." They drove to a little diner on the outskirts of town, the kind with faded leather booths and a jukebox that still worked. Anna sat between Marcus and Linda, dipping waffles into syrup and humming a tune under her breath. Every now and then, she reached out and touched Marcus's sleeve, as if to make sure he was still there. He always would be. As they waited for the check, an older couple approached their table. The woman leaned down slightly. "Excuse me," she said. "I hope we're not intruding. We just saw your video, and we wanted to say thank you for what you did, for standing up for her." Marcus nodded politely, unsure what to say. But then Anna, without prompting, looked up at them and said clearly, "I stood up too." The woman's eyes widened. Her husband smiled. "Yes, you did, sweetheart. And we heard you loud and clear." After they left, Marcus looked at his daughter. "You ready to go home?" She nodded, then added, "Can we plant more sunflowers?" "As many as you want." And as they walked out into the warm Arizona afternoon, hand in hand, he realized something profound. Anna hadn't just survived. She hadn't just spoken. She had planted something, and now, the whole world would watch it bloom. 1 week after the final court ruling, Marcus thought the worst was behind them. Anna had returned to a gentle rhythm, mornings spent drawing on the patio, afternoons at the Silent Hope Center with Dr. Elkins, evenings curled up beside Marcus reading picture books she used to be too scared to open. Her voice, though still soft and infrequent, had returned like a timid guest who no longer feared being silenced. But peace, Marcus had learned, was fragile. Especially when your past refuses to stay buried. It started with a phone call at 6:42 a.m. Raymond's voice was sharp. "She's appealing the no-contact order." Marcus sat upright in bed, his chest tightening. "On what grounds?" "She's claiming she was coerced. That the footage was staged. Her new legal team is arguing it was a high-tech smear campaign designed to weaponize public sympathy and gain full custody. They're leaning into your tech background, saying you manipulated evidence." Marcus stood, pacing the floor barefoot. "That's insane. We have the original files, the metadata, the timestamps. They know that. But that's not their goal, Marcus. They're not trying to win the appeal. They're trying to create doubt. If they can muddy the water just enough, they can stall any future criminal charges. Buy her time." Marcus stopped pacing. "Time for what?" "I don't know," Raymond admitted. "But this isn't over." By midday, Marcus was back in his office, going through security logs. Every file, every backup, every clip that had documented the abuse Candace inflicted. He wanted to be sure there were no gaps, no room for interpretation. But something was off. In one of the folders specifically, the one from the hidden camera in the laundry room, 3 video files were missing. Just gone. Not corrupted. Not deleted. Erased. Cleanly. Marcus's pulse quickened. He hadn't touched that folder since the footage had been turned over to Raymond. No one should have had access. He double-checked the server logs. 1 remote access. 4 nights ago. An IP address masked with a VPN. The breach had lasted only 9 minutes, just enough time to target specific files. He called Raymond again. "We've been compromised." There was silence on the line. "How bad?" "Targeted deletion. Precision work. Someone got in and took only what could weaken the case against her." Raymond cursed under his breath. "She's got help. Someone with serious resources." "She always did," Marcus muttered. Marcus called in his lead cybersecurity officer, a quiet veteran named Morgan who had once worked in digital forensics for the FBI. Within an hour, Morgan confirmed what Marcus feared. It had been a sophisticated breach. Not random. Not sloppy. "They used a piggyback route through your satellite server," Morgan explained. "Encrypted access. This wasn't a kid in a basement. This was surgical." "Can you retrieve the missing files?" Marcus asked. Morgan hesitated. "I can try, but I'll need time. And a court order to dig deeper into any third-party access, especially if this turns criminal." Marcus nodded. "Get it started." Quietly. Later that night, Marcus sat in Anna's room after she fell asleep. The glow of her nightlight cast soft stars on the ceiling. Charlie lay next to her, one arm loosely wrapped around her neck. She looked peaceful. Untouched by the storm rebuilding around them, he watched her sleep, guilt gnawing at his chest. He had thought they'd made it through. He'd promised her peace. And now that peace was being chipped away by lawyers, loopholes, and lies. The next morning, the first article hit the internet. Was the Whitmore abuse case manufactured? Inside the allegations against tech mogul Marcus Whitmore. It came from an obscure fringe outlet. But it was loud, confident, and loaded with half-truths. It suggested that Marcus had faked the abuse for sympathy, for control, for attention, that perhaps Anna's silence wasn't trauma but coaching. It didn't go viral, not immediately. But Marcus knew how disinformation worked. You didn't need to shout. You only needed to whisper into the right ears. He called Linda into his office. She read the article with a deep frown. "They're painting you as paranoid," she said. "As a grieving husband who can't let go." Marcus's jaw clenched. "That's the angle. Make me look like the unstable one. Frame Anna as an unreliable narrator. She's 6, Linda said flatly, and she's already been through hell. Oh. Marcus turned to the window, watching the sun rise over the desert ridge, and now they're trying to throw her back into it. That afternoon, a certified letter arrived at the house. Raymond opened it first and scanned the contents with a grim expression. She's demanding visitation again through a supervised third party. Claims she only wants to restore a sense of closure for Anna. Says she's owed one final goodbye. Marcus stared at the paper. Over my dead body. Raymond placed the letter down. We can block it, but we need to go on offense now. Full press. We file a preemptive civil suit for damages, public endangerment, emotional distress, everything. Drag her team into court before they can drag us. Marcus didn't hesitate. Do it. That night, after dinner, Marcus found Anna in the garden. She had planted her sunflower bed with precision, each one spaced perfectly apart, their stems beginning to reach for the sky. He sat beside her, watching her trace her fingers in the soil. Do you remember, she asked softly, when I used to not talk? He looked at her gently. I do. She nodded. I remember what it felt like. Like there were bees in my throat. Loud ones. Angry. Marcus swallowed. Are they still there? Anna shook her head. Not when I'm with you. He placed his hand over hers. They're trying to change the story, sweetheart. To say things that aren't true, but we're going to make sure the real story stays heard, loud and clear. Anna looked at him, then stood and went inside. A moment later, she returned with her notebook. She opened it to a new page and drew something simple. A bear holding a sunflower. Below it, she wrote 2 words in block letters. Tell everything. Marcus smiled. That's exactly what we'll do. And as the sun dipped low behind the mountains, casting a warm amber over the desert, father and daughter sat side by side in the dirt, planning not just how to survive the next storm, but how to expose it. Marcus Whitmore was not a man who enjoyed the spotlight. He had built his empire from code and circuitry, not charisma. But this time, stepping forward wasn't about business or pride, it was about truth. The morning after Anna handed him her drawing labeled, Tell Everything, Marcus made a decision. If Candace wanted to manipulate public opinion, twist narratives, and hide behind legal theatrics, he would counter her lies with unflinching truth. By 9 a.m., he was seated in front of a camera in his home office. The room was intentionally plain, no corporate logos, no trophies, just a neutral background and a single framed photograph of Rachel holding baby Anna, sunlight pouring through her curls. Linda, standing behind the lens, gave him a small nod. Ready when you are, she said softly. Marcus stared into the lens. His hands were clasped, his voice calm. My name is Marcus Whitmore. I'm the father of a 6-year-old girl named Anna. And I'm here today not as a CEO, but as a father, because the truth matters more than my reputation, more than money, more than the walls we build to protect ourselves. He paused. My daughter was abused by a woman I was engaged to marry. I ignored signs I should have seen. That's on me. But when I saw what she was doing to my child, I acted. I protected Anna, and I will never apologize for that. The next 10 minutes were raw, methodical, and honest. He showed snippets of the footage blurred to protect Anna's identity where Candace's voice, sharp and demeaning, filled the silence. He read excerpts from Dr. Elkin's report. He shared the statement from Darren Holt, the man in Colorado. He included audio clips of Anna's slow return to speech, her voice small, but steady, telling the truth in her own words. By the end, his voice cracked. She is not a story to be rewritten, he said. She is not a weapon. She is my daughter, and I will fight for her until my last breath. He uploaded the video to a private server, then sent it directly to Raymond. Schedule the release. Press conference. National outlets only. Let the truth speak louder than the noise. That afternoon, Raymond called with updates. Her team saw the teaser. They're scrambling. Rumors say they're trying to negotiate a ceasefire, withdraw the appeal quietly in exchange for you pulling the video. Marcus's jaw tightened. No deal. The world deserves to know what she island. and Anna deserves not to live in fear of her reappearance. Raymond didn't argue. I'll draft a counterclaim requesting permanent supervised monitoring of all her digital activity. We'll cite the data breach. It'll restrict her ability to manipulate evidence or harass witnesses. Marcus nodded. Good. That evening, Marcus and Anna sat together watching the desert sky shift from gold to deep blue. Fireflies began to flicker along the edges of the fence line. Anna clutched Charlie in one arm and leaned against her father's shoulder. She said quietly, "What happens now?" He looked down at her. "Now we wait a little. But we don't stop." "Will she go away forever?" "I hope so," he said honestly. "But if not, we'll be ready." Anna was quiet for a long moment, then said, "Can I go back to school?" That question hit Marcus hard, not because of fear but because it meant Anna was finally seeing a life beyond trauma. "Yes," he said, voice warm. "We'll find the right one. Somewhere safe, somewhere good." The next day, Marcus and Linda toured 3 different private schools across the Phoenix area. They chose one with a therapy-integrated curriculum, a tight-knit faculty, and a student-led garden that reminded Anna of her sunflowers. Enrollment was approved within 48 hours. Marcus met with the principal, Mrs. Merriweather, a firm but kind woman in her 60s. Her hands were calloused from years of real teaching. She spoke gently to Anna and never once asked her to speak back. When she saw the necklace around Anna's neck, she smiled. "That's a strong son you carry there." Anna smiled back. After the tour, as Marcus walked with Anna to the car, she paused and tugged on his sleeve. "Daddy?" "Yes, sweetheart? Can we plant some sunflowers here too?" Marcus looked back at the courtyard garden. "I think we can make that happen." The first day of school was quiet. No goodbyes at the gate, no big speeches. Just a pink backpack, a ribbon in her hair, and Charlie riding shotgun in her bag. Marcus stayed parked just outside, watching until he saw her sit down at a desk near the window. She didn't look back. She was ready. Later that afternoon, the video went live. Within hours, it spread like wildfire, not through gossip channels or scandal rags, but through survivor networks, parenting groups, advocacy pages. The comments poured in. "Thank you for saying what so many can't. My daughter was silenced too. I see her in yours. Candace tried the same with my niece. Thank God someone's finally exposing her." News anchors began to pick it up. Journalists reached out for interviews. Legal analysts called the appeal dead in the water. Marcus didn't celebrate. He just exhaled. 3 days later, Raymond walked into his office, holding a single document. "She withdrew," Raymond said. "No appeal. No visitation claim. She's gone quiet." Marcus took the paper and stared at it. His hands didn't shake. He didn't cry. He just nodded. "She knows the world's watching now," Raymond added. Marcus looked out the window at the fading Arizona light. "Good. Let her stay in the shadows." That evening, he told Anna the news. She listened quietly, then reached for her notebook. She drew a sunflower. This one was tall. Taller than the last, with roots that dug deep and petals that stretched wide. She looked up at him. "Can we send this to the school garden?" He smiled. "We'll frame it." And for the first time in months, they ended the night without fear knocking at the door. Just a quiet home. A safe child. And the promise of tomorrow. Blooming in the soil they had protected with everything they had. 3 weeks after the video release and Candace's quiet withdrawal, things began to settle into a new rhythm. Anna had started school and already made 2 friends, a shy girl named Mia who loved books, and a freckled boy named Jasper who showed her how to build paper airplanes that actually flew. Marcus picked her up every afternoon. She never ran to him, never squealed. But she smiled. That quiet, knowing smile. And she waved every time. It should have felt like a happy ending. But endings, Marcus knew, rarely came so cleanly. Raymond called one evening with a strange update. "I got a call from a woman in Maryland," he said. "She asked if the girl in your video was named Anna." Then she hung up before I could get anything else. Marcus rubbed his temple. "Another mother? Maybe. Or maybe someone who knows Candace's pattern. She might not have just disappeared, Marcus. She might be circling back, somewhere else. Same tricks. New family. Marcus set forward. We need to find out where she island. I already started, Raymond replied. We're running credit activity, travel records. But if she's using aliases again, it could take time. I don't want time. I want her stopped. Then we widen the net. Raymond's idea was bold. Create a secure online space for survivors and whistleblowers to report cases like Anna's anonymously. A digital tip line, supported by lawyers, therapists, and advocates. Not just to track Candace, but to shine a light on anyone hiding behind family court systems, emotional manipulation, or sealed documents. Marcus funded the platform within 72 hours. They called it Sunlight. Its tagline, inspired by Anna's drawing, was simple: tell everything. By the end of the first week, Sunlight received over 300 messages. Only a handful mentioned Candace directly, but they painted a disturbing pattern. In each case, a woman matching her description had integrated herself into the life of a man with a young child. At first, she was warm, loving. Then came isolation, accidents, the child's withdrawal, the father's confusion. And finally, legal entanglements that conveniently cut the father out and left the child defenseless. Marcus read each account with shaking hands. She's done this too many times, he muttered. Too many families. One message in particular stood out. It came from a teenage girl named Lila. Her message was short, barely a paragraph. She told me if I spoke, my dad would go to jail, so I didn't, for 3 years. But I saw your video, and I remembered her voice. It's the same woman. She used to wear sunflower perfume. I used to think it smelled like poison. Marcus sent the message straight to Raymond. 2 days later, Raymond had an update. We found her. New identity. New fiancé. Fresno, California. Marcus's pulse spiked. A child involved? Boy, 4 years old. Name's Ethan. Is the father aware? Not yet, but we've looped in child services and a trusted prosecutor. They're moving fast. That night, Marcus couldn't sleep. He sat in Anna's room, watching her breathe. She had fallen asleep with Charlie again. One arm stretched over the bear like it was an anchor. Her drawing from the garden, the one they had planned to frame, rested on her nightstand, the petals outlined in gold crayon. He whispered to her, even though she couldn't hear him. You saved someone today, little sunflower. Maybe more than one. The next morning, Linda approached him with a strange look on her face. I think you need to see this. She handed him her tablet, already open to a video that had gone semi-viral overnight. Candace. In Fresno. Standing in a supermarket parking lot, yelling at someone off camera. Her voice unmistakable. Sharp. Belittling. The video had been taken by a bystander who recognized her from Marcus's public campaign. Recognize this woman? Man with her looked scared. So did the kid. The internet moved faster than the courts. Within 12 hours, local police received over 50 tips. By sundown, Candace Jordan alias Camilla Gray was in custody for questioning. The child, Ethan, was placed temporarily with his grandmother pending a full investigation. The father, a mild-mannered accountant named Paul, gave a shell-shocked statement to authorities. She told me I was the problem, that my son needed discipline. I didn't know what was happening. When Marcus read the report, his fists curled. She had been days away, days from completing the same cycle all over again. Later that evening, Marcus stood in the garden beside Anna. They were planting new rows, this time lavender and rosemary to join the growing sunflowers. Anna was quiet, but she looked more at peace than ever before. I have something to tell you, Marcus said softly, placing a hand on her shoulder. Anna looked up at him, waiting. You remember the boy in the message you read? The one who might have been hurt? She nodded. He's safe now. Because of you. Because you were brave. Because you told everything. Anna's eyes widened. Really? Really? She blinked, then smiled. Maybe. I can draw him something. Marcus grinned. I think he'd like that. Back inside, as Anna drew a small boy with a sunflower in one hand and a kite in the other, Marcus opened his laptop. The Sunlight inbox had doubled. More people. More stories. Not just about Candace, but about others. About mothers, stepfathers, teachers, uncles. A growing network of voices refusing to be silenced. He realized then that this had become something much larger than their own story. It had become a movement. Linda stepped into the room with a fresh cup of coffee. You know this isn't just about her anymore, right? Marcus nodded. It's about all of them. Every kid, like Anna. Linda sat beside him. So what now? Marcus looked at the screen, at the name they'd chosen together, at the hundreds of people waiting for someone to believe them. Now, he said, we bring the sunlight to every shadow. And for the first time in a long time, the future didn't feel like something to be feared. It felt like something worth building, petal by petal, voice by voice, until no child had to whisper their truth again. It was a Sunday morning, bright and golden, the kind of day that made even the desert seem gentle. Anna sat under the patio pergola, painting sunflowers with broad strokes. Her brush dipped in warm yellow and hints of orange. Her curls danced in the breeze, and a hummingbird zipped near the feeder as if checking on her progress. Marcus was inside, sipping coffee and reviewing the latest updates from the Sunlight platform. Reports were still flooding and some full of anguish. Others triumph. The initiative had sparked new partnerships with family law attorneys, therapists, and even a few retired judges who offered to consult pro bono. What began as one man's fight to protect his daughter was becoming a nationwide ripple of reform. He had just closed his laptop when the doorbell rang. It was Linda, holding a thick manila envelope. This was dropped off this morning, she said. No return address. Marcus frowned. Courier? Nope. It was slid under the front gate. He took the envelope warily, his instincts prickling. The seal had been carefully folded. Inside, there were two items, a typed letter and a photograph. He pulled the photo out first. It was of Anna, at school, wearing her blue polka dot dress, her backpack slightly askew, Charlie's ear peeking from the zipper. She was mid-step, walking toward the classroom, her face partially turned to the side. Marcus felt ice crawl through his veins. He turned to the letter. The font was clean. No handwriting. Just 6 short lines. You can plant flowers all you want, but weeds always grow back. You think you buried me, but shadows don't stay dead. She is still mine, and I'm not done. No name, no threats, but the message was clear. Linda read it over his shoulder, then exhaled sharply. We need to call Raymond. And the police. Marcus didn't respond. He was already walking to the security console in his study. He rewound the footage from that morning, frame by frame. At 6:11 a.m., a black SUV paused outside the gate for exactly 13 seconds. A hand reached out leather gloves and slid the envelope through the iron bars. No plates visible, no face. He picked up his phone and called Raymond. She's back, Marcus said without preamble. Or someone working for her. You're sure it's Candice? She knows Anna's schedule. Took a photo from outside the school. There's a message cryptic, but personal. She's escalating. I'm calling in favors, Raymond said immediately. We'll get school security increased. We'll file for a protective injunction. You'll have a patrol car on your block within the hour. Marcus Bassett. And I want every existing camera reviewed, replaced if necessary, if there's even one blind spot. I'll send a team. That night, Marcus sat at the foot of Anna's bed long after she'd fallen asleep. She looked peaceful, her lips slightly parted. One hand curled beneath her cheek. But that peace felt paper-thin now, vulnerable. He turned to Linda, who had silently entered the room. She's not safe yet, he whispered. Linda nodded grimly. Number. But she's stronger than she was, and this time, she's not the one hiding. They didn't tell Anna about the letter. Not yet. But Marcus began taking her to and from school personally again. He walked her into the building, waved to every teacher, memorized every exit. Still, it wasn't enough to quell the unease gnawing at him. 3 days later, another letter arrived. This time, taped inside a bouquet of sunflowers left at the community center. The note was shorter, handwritten. A seed knows how to wait. This time, the handwriting was unmistakable. It was Candace's. The letters were slanted, the S shaped like a curling ribbon, just like the notes she used to leave on the fridge. Marcus remembered them too well. Don't forget your 3 p.m. call. Love you. Now that same handwriting carried poison. They contacted the FBI. Agent Sloan, a middle-aged woman with sharp eyes and a cool demeanor, took lead on the case. She reviewed the letters, the video footage, and the tip line data. She's not trying to stay hidden, Sloan observed. She's trying to control the narrative again. To plant fear without showing her face. Why? Marcus asked. She knows she's being watched. She knows we'll never back down. Because she doesn't want control. Sloan replied. She wants chaos. She thrives in the space between doubt and fear. Marcus exhaled slowly. Then we take that space away. They ramped up Sunlight's internal tracking systems. Every suspicious message, every alias, every blurred digital footprint was combed and compared. Sloan's team ran geofencing protocols around school properties, Anna's therapist's office, and even Linda's residence. 2 weeks passed. No new letters. Then, on a Tuesday morning, while Anna was at her speech therapy session, Linda came rushing into Marcus's office. She left a voicemail, Linda said, breathless. Marcus stiffened. Candice? Number the teenage girl, Lila, the one who wrote about sunflower perfume. She left her number this time. Marcus grabbed the phone, dialed immediately. A young voice answered. Wary, measured. Hello? Lila, this is Marcus Whitmore. I got your message. Silence. Then, I think she's following me. I saw a car outside my campus. Same SUV you posted. I remembered the logo. She used to make me scrub it off with vinegar. Are you in a safe place? I'm on campus. I haven't gone home. Good. Stay there. I'm sending someone. Just stay visible. Marcus hung up and called Agent Sloan. Within 10 minutes, a car was dispatched. Within an hour, Lila was under protective watch. And with her testimony won from years earlier, they finally had a consistent pattern that connected multiple states, aliases, and victims. It wasn't just a case anymore. It was a manhunt. That night, as Marcus tucked Anna into bed, she looked up and whispered, "You look tired." He smiled softly. A little. Bad people coming back. He froze, then met her gaze. Yes, he said, but we're not afraid of them anymore. Anna nodded. Then rolled over and pulled Charlie into her arms. I'll protect you, she mumbled sleepily. Marcus watched her until her breathing deepened, then stepped outside into the cool desert night. Overhead, the stars blinked silently. She was watching, waiting, but so were they. And this time, she wasn't the only one with shadows. The heat came early that week, settling over Phoenix like a warning. Even before sunrise, the wind carried a dry hush that made the skin prickle. Marcus stood at the edge of the garden, watching the sunflowers bend slightly toward the east. Anna had watered them herself before school, humming a quiet tune that, according to Dr. Elkins, was her own lullaby, a tune her mother used to sing before everything shattered. Marcus couldn't stop thinking about the voicemail Lila had left. She sounded older now, more composed, but under the surface was the same fear he had seen in Anna's eyes, the knowledge that someone who once smiled at you had become your nightmare. Agent Sloan had spent the last 4 days gathering statements from others who'd used the Sunlight platform. 3 more victims had stepped forward, all under different aliases, tied back to Candace, Camilla Gray, Sophia Vallon, Ava Laramie. The web was expanding, and yet, Candace herself remained a ghost. Until Tuesday, Linda burst into Marcus's study with urgency in her steps. We found something. Marcus turned from his monitor. Where? Payson. Small town. 2 hours north. A local woman saw a woman matching Candace's new look, dyed red hair, sunglasses, indoors, leaving a gas station with a child. A boy, around 5. Looked scared. Marcus rose to his feet. Same SUV? Same model. Partial plate match. They're checking nearby motels. Oh. Within an hour, Marcus, Agent Sloan, and a small tactical unit from the local sheriff's office were en route. As they drove along the twisting roads into the pine-covered hills, Marcus couldn't help but feel the walls closing in. This wasn't just about justice anymore. It was about stopping a pattern that had already left scars across too many families. When they arrived in Payson, the lead deputy, a man named Carver with sunburned cheeks and a deep drawl, pointed them to a roadside lodge, the kind of place where no one asked questions and everyone paid in cash. She checked in under the name Amanda Gray. Paid for 3 nights. Had the kid with her. Clerk said he looked quiet, trained almost. Agent Sloan pulled on a vest. We go quiet. No alarms. If she runs, she might take the boy with her. Marcus stayed back as the team approached room 207. The corridor was shaded, the air thick with pine resin and cigarette smoke. They didn't knock. They used a master key, opened the door slowly, and found the room empty, beds unmade. Toys on the floor. A suitcase half open with clothes still inside. But the window was open, and the fire escape ladder had been pulled down. She's already gone, Sloan muttered. She knew we were coming. Marcus looked around the room. Something felt staged, like it had been made to look rushed but wasn't. Then his eyes landed on the table. There was a drawing, childlike, a boy standing in front of a sunflower. His face scribbled out, and in blocky adult letters beneath it, a message: he'll forget just like the others. Marcus's throat tightened. Sloan scanned the scene for prints while the deputy contacted Highway Patrol. They put out an Amber Alert, this time with Candace's most recent aliases and the boy's description. But as night fell, there were no new sightings. No cameras caught her on the nearby highways. She had vanished again. Back in Phoenix, Marcus sat with Anna on the porch. She sensed something had changed. Her drawings that evening were darker blues, grays, rough pencil strokes. He didn't lie to her. She's still out there, he said gently. And we think she has another little boy with her. Anna stared at her picture. Then she wrote a single word beneath it. Find. We will, Marcus promised. But I need your help. She looked up. Do you remember anything else? From before? Something she used to say? Somewhere she liked to go? Anna hesitated. Then she pointed at her ear. Then her mouth. The sign she used when she meant music. Music? Marcus asked. She nodded. Then she pulled out her notebook and drew what looked like a jukebox. Marcus blinked. A diener? She nodded again, more urgently. Linda, watching nearby, narrowed her eyes. She used to take Anna out to eat. Marcus, you remember? Before the pool incident. Once or twice a week, just the two of them. He nodded slowly. Yeah. I thought it was bonding time. It wasn't, Linda said. It was training time. Marcus reached for his laptop and pulled up Anna's GPS history from before her silence. Sure enough, a recurring pin popped up near Casa Grande, a roadside diner called Melody's Table, known for its retro jukeboxes. An hour later, Agent Sloan and her team were en route. But this time, Marcus didn't wait behind. When they arrived, the diner was half empty, bathed in neon red. A waitress named Jeannie met them at the door. She was here, Jeannie said, arms crossed. About 3 hours ago, ordered grilled cheese and fries for the kid, Saturday in the corner. I recognized her from the news, but I wasn't sure until now. She left a tip, a $100 bill, no note. Just walked out. Marcus felt dread settle again. Which direction? North, Jeannie said, toward the old highway. They chased leads into the night, but once again, Candace slipped through. A ghost with a stolen child. Back home, Marcus sat in the study, staring at the sunflower Anna had drawn years ago, the one with uneven petals, its roots tangled like the truth. And suddenly, he remembered something Rachel used to say, the more you chase a shadow, the more it plays with the light. He whispered aloud, then maybe it's time to stop chasing. He opened a blank document and began to type. A message. To Candace. He made it personal, honest, direct. He spoke not as a prosecutor, not as a CEO, but as the father of the girl she tried to destroy, and the protector of every child she might try to hurt again. He closed it with a single sentence. No more hiding. Come into the light. And then he posted it. Publicly. Not through press, not through lawyers. Just him. It went viral overnight. And in a dusty motel outside Tucson, A red-haired woman holding a sleeping child read it. Her hand trembled. For the first time, not with rage, but with fear. The post Marcus released was simple, without dramatic imagery or emotional music. It was a letter. A father's plea. Written from the heart, the rawness of it cut through the noise of the internet like a knife through silk. There were no threats, no promises, just 5 plain paragraphs ending with, "No more hiding. Come into the light." By the next morning, the post had over 2 million views. Survivors across the country shared their stories in the comments. Parents wrote about their fears, and mental health professionals reposted it with words like necessary, brave, and long overdue. But it wasn't the numbers that mattered, it was the silence that followed. For the first time in weeks, there were no letters, no sightings, no cryptic sunflower drawings. It was as if Candace had frozen in place, unsure how to react. For a woman used to manipulating from the shadows, Marcus had done the unthinkable. He had turned on the light. Agent Sloan called Marcus that afternoon. "We think she's rattled." We intercepted an encrypted message from a burner phone used in previous aliases traced to Tucson. "Tucson?" Marcus echoed. "That's only 2 hours away. She's close. But she's not acting impulsively. If anything, she's watching us. Waiting. Then maybe it's time we give her something to watch," Marcus said. A plan was born that same night. It wasn't just a sting, it was psychological warfare. If Candace wanted control, they'd give her a stage and then pull the rug out from under her. The idea was simple: create a fictional reunion event public, sentimental, and perfectly tempting. A staged foundation launch celebrating Sunlight's impact, with Marcus, Anna, and several key survivors attending. The twist? The event wouldn't be real, just a shell. A press release. A few photos, carefully planted hints. Enough to lure Candace into thinking Marcus was dropping his guard, and they wouldn't hold it in Phoenix. They'd hold it in Tucson. The plan was precise. A closed school gym, repurposed as the venue. A tight perimeter. Undercover agents, mingling as guests. Anna would not be present, her part would be played by a look-alike with a blurred face in all pre-event images. The bait was set within 48 hours. The morning of the event, Marcus stood in front of the venue's main entrance, flanked by Linda and Agent Sloan. Cameras were visible, real enough to be convincing. Volunteers moved in and out, placing signs, adjusting decorations. Everything was designed to look authentic. Agent Sloan leaned in. "We've got eyes on 3 potential vehicles in the perimeter. One matches a model used in Colorado." No movement yet. Marcus nodded. He wasn't nervous. He was calmer than he'd been in months. Because this time, he wasn't reacting. He was leading. At 1:47 p.m., a woman with shoulder-length red hair, oversized sunglasses, and a long coat stepped out of a black SUV parked just down the street. She walked with purpose, cradling a boy in one arm. "Ethan." Agent Sloan's team sprang into action. The parking lot was already under surveillance, and within seconds, the woman was surrounded by 4 plainclothes officers. Candace didn't resist. She didn't run. She didn't even flinch. Instead, she handed over the boy with a chilling smile and said, "Took you long enough." The arrest was quiet but definitive. Candace was taken into custody, and Ethan was immediately checked by on-site medics. Aside from signs of emotional withdrawal, he appeared physically unharmed. Marcus watched from the doorway, expression unreadable. It was over, or so it seemed. Later that evening, in the Tucson field office, Agent Sloan reviewed the interrogation footage with Marcus. Candace sat in the gray interview room, eerily calm. Her voice carried no remorse, only justification. "He was broken," she said. "Like all of them. I gave them discipline, purpose. Their fathers were weak. They didn't know how to raise warriors." Sloan shook her head. "She sees herself as a purifier, not a predator. She's delusional," Marcus said quietly. "But she's calculated. She left those notes for a reason." They searched the SUV and found a burner phone, several IDs, and a notebook filled with names and symbols like trophies or plans. Some names were familiar, others unknown. One name made Marcus's breath catch: Rachel Whitmore. His late wife. The date scribbled next to it was from years ago. She's been planning this since before Rachel died. Marcus whispered. Maybe even contributing. Agent Sloan glanced at him. You think she was involved in your wife's accident? I don't know, Marcus said, voice rough. But now I have to find out. Over the next 2 days, with Candace in federal custody, layers of her past began to unravel. Several of her former aliases were linked to insurance fraud, coercion, and suspected child abuse. Records buried deep inside family court archives, sealed under confidentiality, surfaced through legal pressure from Sunlight's new partners. Survivors felt emboldened. More spoke up. More details came out. But for Marcus, the real breakthrough came not from the courts or the headlines. It came from Anna. She sat with him one morning, watching the birds from the kitchen window. Her sunflower necklace glinted in the light. She looked up and said, for the first time with perfect clarity, Mommy didn't fall. Marcus froze. He turned to her, his heart pounding. What did you say, sweetheart? Anna nodded slowly. I saw her, on the stairs. The lady. She pushed. Marcus felt the world tilt. Anna had been there. She had seen it. The trauma had buried the memory so deep it had been lost until now. He held her hand gently. Do you remember more? She pointed to her head. It's foggy. But the sound. Mommy cried. Then. The woman laughed. Marcus swallowed hard. There it was. Proof, or at least a path to it. Candace had not only abused Anna, she might have killed Rachel. And this story wasn't over yet. As the chapter closed on one kind of justice, a darker, deeper truth began to surface. And Marcus knew, without doubt, that the real reckoning was still to come. The memory wouldn't leave him. Marcus sat in his study, the late evening sun painting long amber streaks across the carpet. His hands trembled slightly as he stared at the old police report on Rachel's death, the official version, accidental fall. No witnesses. Rachel had been alone, and no signs of foul play had been found. But now Anna had spoken. The woman Candace was there. She had pushed. He closed the folder, jaw clenched. It wasn't enough to feel anger. He needed truth. Concrete. Admissible. And this time, he wouldn't let buried facts stay buried. Agent Sloan returned that night. Marcus had asked her to meet in person. I need everything re-examined, he said without hesitation. Rachel's case, scene photos, forensics, witness logs, all of it, from scratch. Sloan gave him a long look. You're thinking murder? I'm not thinking, he said darkly. I'm remembering. She and Candace had tension. Rachel confided in me just weeks before her death. She said something wasn't right. Someone watching the house. Something she couldn't explain. And you told the police? I tried. Marcus replied. Bitterness in his voice. But back then, I wasn't the man I am now. I didn't push hard enough. I let it go. Not this time, Sloan said, her tone firm. We'll reopen the file as a cold case. Quietly, discreetly, she reached into her briefcase and pulled out an old CD. We already retrieved the 911 call from that night. You should hear it. Marcus hesitated, then pressed play. The faint crackle of static, followed by Rachel's panicked voice. He's not supposed to be here. I told her not to wait. No, please. A crash. Then silence. Marcus's heart stopped. She was begging, he whispered. Someone was with her. She wasn't alone. Huh. Sloan nodded. We had voice technicians enhance the audio. There's a second voice. Muffled. A woman. Laughing. Marcus covered his mouth. Just like Anna said. It's not definitive, Sloan cautioned, but it's damning. They reviewed the autopsy. Rachel had bruises inconsistent with a single fall. Wrist contusions. A small laceration near the back of her neck never fully explained. It had all been deemed accidental in the absence of other evidence. But now they had motive. They had history. And they had Anna. Sloan made the call that night to the county DA. a formal request to classify Rachel's death as suspicious and reopen the investigation. Meanwhile, Marcus returned to the house with a new purpose. He began tracing Rachel's final days, her routines, her journal entries, even her favorite spots in the garden. He wanted to know where she had been, what she had seen. It was Anna who helped him most. She led him by the hand one afternoon to the narrow staircase between the kitchen and the garage, the old servant stairs, rarely used. "Here," she said softly, tapping the rail. Marcus crouched, scanning the area. It was clean. Too clean. He pulled back the edge of the carpet and found something odd. A broken screw in the banister, deliberately loosened. Further down, a gap in the wall, trim almost unnoticeable. He pried it open. Inside was a tiny compartment, dusty, but not undisturbed. Inside, wrapped in an old silk handkerchief, was a flash drive. His heart pounded. He took it to his study, plugged it in, and waited. It held just one video, home footage, from a nanny cam Rachel had apparently hidden in the hallway, without ever telling Marcus. The timestamp showed it had been recorded the day before her death. The footage was grainy, but unmistakable. Candace, in the house, alone, searching through drawers. Then Rachel entered the frame. They argued muffled, but intense. Rachel pointed toward the door, clearly asking Candace to leave. Candace stepped forward instead. Then the screen glitched. A scream. The feed cut out. It was enough. Marcus called Sloan, who arrived with a forensic team within the hour. They backed up the file, authenticated the date and timestamp, and confirmed it had not been tampered with. "This changes everything," Sloan said, her voice tight. "It's not just pattern behavior anymore. This is premeditated trespassing. And possibly a confrontation that escalated to homicide." Marcus watched the screen go dark again. "She planned this long before Anna's injuries. She worked her way into our lives. Slowly. Deliberately." Sloan nodded. "We need to move carefully. If this leads to a murder charge, her defense team will fight back hard. But we have truth on our side now," Marcus said. "And this time, I won't let the system bury it." Word came 2 days later. The district attorney had approved a grand jury probe into Rachel's death. Candace's legal team immediately filed motions to block the use of the video, citing illegal surveillance and lack of chain of custody. Sloan prepared to fight them in court. Meanwhile, Marcus sat down with Anna again. She had been drawing a picture of their family, him, her, and Rachel, 3 stick figures in front of the sunflower patch. "I found the camera," he told her gently. Anna's eyes widened. "You were right, sweetheart. Mommy didn't fall, and now we can prove it." Anna stared at the drawing for a long time. Then she flipped the page and began a new sketch. This time, it was of a courtroom, a judge, a jury, and her, sitting beside Marcus, holding Charlie the bear. It was clear. She was ready to speak, to face the past, to finish what had been left undone. And as the sun dipped below the Arizona horizon, casting long golden shadows across the house that once held secrets, Marcus felt something he hadn't felt in years. Hope, real hope, anchored not in justice served, but in truth revealed. And this time, he would walk through the fire not as a broken man, but as a father unafraid. The courthouse in downtown Phoenix stood like a fortress of truth and delay. Its sandstone facade gleamed under the morning sun, casting long shadows across the plaza. Inside, people moved with quiet urgency, lawyers in pressed suits, families in folded silence, and one little girl clutching a weathered stuffed bear to her chest. Anna. Marcus sat beside her in the waiting room, dressed in a gray suit that had seen too many funerals and not enough justice. He wasn't a man of performance. He never liked cameras, never sought the spotlight, but today, he would speak for Rachel. For Anna. For every whispered story buried under legal technicalities. This was the first day of the grand jury hearing. Candace sat across the hall in a separate waiting area, surrounded by her legal team. Her face was expressionless, her red hair tied back into a tight bun. She looked nothing like the smiling woman who once brought Anna bedtime cookies, nothing like the woman who laughed in the hallway the night Rachel died. She looked like what she was now, a cornered predator. Agent Sloan walked up to Marcus with a nod. We're starting soon. Anna will go in last. Are you sure she's ready? Marcus looked down at his daughter. She was staring at the courtroom doors, not afraid, just waiting. In her lap, Charlie wore a new ribbon. Yellow, the color Rachel loved. She's more ready than I ever was, Marcus said quietly. They called him first. The courtroom was smaller than he'd expected, more intimate. The grand jury members sat in silence as Marcus recounted the timeline: Rachel's unease before her death, the injuries Anna suffered afterward, the twisted trail of lies Candace left behind. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't dramatize. He simply told the truth. He ended with the flash drive footage, his voice tight. This wasn't an accident. It was a pattern, a manipulation, and my daughter saw it all before she was even 6 years old. There was silence as he stepped down. Next came forensic testimony, confirming the hidden camera's legitimacy and establishing a timeline consistent with Anna's recollection. Then came the defense. Candace's lawyers painted her as a misunderstood woman, a caregiver overwhelmed, a stepmother rejected, a victim of false narratives. But the jury listened with careful faces, stoic, focused. And then, it was Anna's turn. Marcus waited outside the courtroom doors, hands trembling as Linda escorted Anna inside. She walked slowly, her small shoes clicking softly on the tile, holding Charlie tightly. Dr. Elkins stood nearby, just out of sight, ready to intervene if needed. The judge adjusted his tone, gentle and warm. Anna, do you know why you're here today? Anna nodded. Do you know it's okay to take your time? She nodded again. Then she reached for the microphone. At first, there was only silence. Then, her voice. Clear, soft, but full of steel. She pushed my mommy. Gasps rippled across the courtroom. The prosecutor leaned in gently. Can you tell us what you remember, Anna? Anna looked at the jury. She said Mommy didn't listen. Then she got mad. She grabbed her arm and made her fall. I was hiding on the stairs. I saw. And after your mom's accident, did she say anything to you? Anna clutched Charlie tighter. She said if I told, Daddy would leave me too. Marcus felt his knees weaken outside the door. He pressed a hand against the wall for support. Tears burned at the corners of his eyes. Inside the courtroom, Anna continued. She made me sleep in the dark. She said Mommy was watching. But Mommy was gone. And what about the drawings you made? The attorney asked. What were you trying to say with those? Anna flipped her sketchbook, showing a drawing of 3 figures, Mommy, Anna, and Daddy with a 4th figure behind them, painted in shadow. She was always watching, Anna whispered. Even when no one else saw, the room was silent when Anna finished. The jury watched as she stepped down, clutching her bear, walking back to Linda's arms. No sobs, no drama, just quiet courage. Marcus embraced her tightly as soon as she exited. You did it, sweetheart, he whispered. You told the truth. That evening, Marcus stood on the back patio, staring into the horizon. The sun was setting, painting the sky in crimson and gold. Anna sat beside him, humming that same lullaby Rachel used to sing. Her head leaned gently against his arm. Agent Sloan called just before dusk. They're moving forward with 2nd-degree murder charges, she said. Child endangerment, obstruction, and abuse. It's going to trial. Marcus didn't speak for a long time. When he finally did, his voice was steady. Thank you. Thank you, Sloan replied. Not just for Rachel, but for every child who never got to speak. That night, as Phoenix settled into quiet, Anna drew one last picture before bed. It was the sunflower patch. In full bloom, the stems tall and proud, and in the center, a smiling woman in a blue dress, Rachel holding hands with Anna and Marcus. No shadows. No fear, just light. As Marcus tucked her in, she whispered, Will Mommy see this? He nodded. She already has, and for the first time in months, Anna closed her eyes and slept without clutching Charlie. No tears, no nightlights, just peace, because the truth had been spoken. Justice had begun, and the silence that once swallowed their home had finally been broken by the sound of a little girl's voice. The story teaches us that silence can be both a prison and a shield, but truth is the only key that sets us free. Through Marcus's unwavering love and Anna's quiet bravery, we're reminded that justice is not only about the courtroom, but about standing up for those who cannot speak for themselves. It's a powerful reminder that healing begins when we listen, believe, and refuse to let darkness win.